spiritual bypassing. In this video, we talk 3 things that you need to know about spiritual bypassing, including what it actually is. Hey, it is your girl Abby, aka New Age Coach here, and I am lighting the way for those on their way to the light. And to my soul vibers, that is those of you who are already subscribed to this channel, thank you. And anyone new just tuning in, welcome. On this channel, we talk all things self and soul development. So if you like that vibe and you want to join the tribe, hit subscribe. All right, my people, the first thing you need to know about spiritual bypassing, like I said, is what is it? I opened up this video with that clip because this is the same way I've been asking myself this question all week when I found out what this actually was. If you've been on this journey with me over the last week or so, you know I've made some videos talking about doing all of these spiritual practices, but not truly feeling connected to them because I knew that I was doing them with the wrong intention. I was doing them with looking for something outside of myself to validate myself instead of going within. But the good part is that's awareness, right? So that's learning. But what I actually realized synchronistically, if that's the word you use when a synchronicity happens, is that what I've been doing actually has a term, and it's called spiritual bypassing. And what that actually is, it's basically when we're using these spiritual ideas or these practices or spiritual tools to sidestep or to avoid facing any unresolved issues that we hold inside of us, whether that's psychological, emotional, physiological, just any type of wounds or unfinished developmental business that we need to face. That was just a really long way of me trying to say spiritual bypassing is a mechanism where we try to avoid or escape life's difficulties. You ask, what do I mean by life's difficulties? Are you suffering the loss of a loved one? Have you had a relationship breakup? Do you have family problems? Do you suffer childhood abuse? Are you lonely? Do you have low self-esteem? Do you do low vibrational things? Do you do self-sabotaging behaviors? Do you have fear within you? Do you have mental, emotional, or health issues? Do you have problems? And if you answered yes to any of those, have you actually taken the time to go within yourself, look at them, and resolve them instead of trying to distract yourself with everything else that there is to be distracted by in this world? Now, don't get me wrong. I am just making this video for number one about what is spiritual bypassing as a way to just be a red flag for people, because ultimately all of the tools and resources we have for spirituality, for getting in touch with yourself, like meditation, like all of these different things that I try, like float tanks. I mean, these all have amazing, amazing benefits and they work, and I absolutely have faith and believe in them. But what I'm saying more importantly is to make sure that we're using those tools and resources with balance and realizing that you are inside your own greatest resource to do that. Because what happens is it's basically what I'm kind of calling the dark side of spirituality, where it's almost like you use the spiritual tools as a drug, an escape mechanism, the high that you get when you do those things, but without truly getting to the core of the things that need a good looking at to be able to transmute. You know what I'm saying? The second thing that you need to know about spiritual bypassing is the illusions that it creates, right? So I just read a quote about, the reality is that not everything in this spiritual journey is about love and light and high vibrations and positivity and all of these slogans that we use. And I know I'm a culprit, my tagline, lighting the way for those on their way to the light. Like, I obviously absolutely know that that's true, and it rings true for me, at least in my heart of hearts. The point I'm making when I'm saying that is that pursuing, this light and living this enlightened life, right? And being deeply interconnected it also means that in order to do that, you have to set your soul on fire. Like, you literally have to set yourself on fire, meaning you have to dive deep into those trenches. It's not just about frolicking down the freaking pathways and like lollipops shooting out of my butthole. Like, sometimes that is how you feel, and that's part of the journey. But that is not the only part of the journey that so many of us accidentally place that emphasis on, and therefore cause this chasing of that feeling, like I was just talking about it feeling like a drug. And in chasing of that feeling, you're not being present in those moments where you do have these darker type of things that might surface for you that need attention and love as well. Spirituality, it's not always pretty. In fact, like 90% of the times, at least from my own personal experience, I'd say it's the most shattering, tumultuous, confusing, frustrating, and testing experience that I've gone through in my entire life. And I've only been on this journey for like about a year at this point. But I tell you, as many beautiful moments as there have been for me, there have been moments where I literally am just like, no words, just this. But sticking with that whole setting yourself on fire, you know, escaping from this illusion that everything's beautiful and perfect on this journey, that is also the beauty in this. That's the catch-22, is that once we burn ourselves to the ground, the old things that we used to believe, the old person that we used to think we are, letting go of everything that doesn't serve us, right? Once you get burned to the ground, using that same metaphor, it is only then that you can rise back up and be that phoenix. The third thing I want you to know about spiritual bypassing is that it can happen to you, and that although spirituality is so beautiful, there is an ugly side to it. Don't let a frown get you upside down. The glass is always half full. Smile. Fake it till you make it, right? We've all heard these types of sayings. And yes, there is truth to that. Yes, there's science behind truth to that. Yes, there's a spiritual component to that I also do believe is true. But this is a warning that through spiritual bypassing, what that actually means is that could be a crutch, the optimistic crutch, right? Where it could mean the opposite, as instead of actually believing that you're happy and that you are all of these things, in fact, underneath all of that, do you actually have an inability to deal with negative emotions? And that's why we're hiding from them through these sayings? Think about it. Have you ever talked to someone that's like, I can't date this guy. He's not a Cancer. He's not a Sagittarius. He doesn't align with my astrological sign. I live by my horoscope. There is no other truth. Right? We've also heard people like that. And yes, again, I love horoscopes. I love oracle readings. I believe in the power of tapping into intuition through higher self, and the people who are reading for us having spiritual gifts to connect with the divine, to relay messages. Absolutely. But it becomes that stepping over the balance, or that borderline, when we use those external predictions from other people derived from the fear and mistrust of our own inner guidance and intuition that could do the same exact thing, and our own inability to make decisions, or again, our inability to deal with anything just tough that comes our way, and asking someone else for that answer. Right? What I'm just trying to do here is point out some of these ugly sides of spiritual bypassing, like finger pointing. You know, you're holier than thou now, so you're looking at everyone else's behavior, but really that's their own journey. There's this concept of, you know, thinking that you're better than someone else, right? You're more spiritual than someone. It's a competition and comparison, when again, the goal is not to look outwards and judge anyone else at all. It's again to turn your eyesight and attention back into yourself. There's the, you know, saint kind of mentality where you're taught that spiritual people are just the nicest, kindest, most compassionate, etc. So what happens then when you're living your real life and you don't feel those way, and you don't feel nice, and you feel angry, and you want to just actually have these other emotions, you know, and you don't let yourself be able to have them because of this perception of what a spiritual person means. Spiritual bypassing, it is a tricky one, because obviously no one really wants to feel pain and hatred and fear and shame and terror and all of these negative vibing emotions, right? Completely understandable. But if you do want the opposite of joy, of compassion, of fulfillment, of unconditional love, then you absolutely have to stop using spiritual band-aids and really just rip those right off and get to the root of who you really are in the inside. All of that bad, all of that ugly, all of that indifference, it is still who you are. So don't ignore that side of the journey either.